welcome to the AEW Double or Nothing review. We are the Dadley Boyz of WhatCulture. I'm Adam Wilborn, joined by Michael Hamflett and Michael Sidgwick, here to review everything that happened at Double or Nothing over the weekend. But before we get into it, if you're a fan of this sort of thing, make sure you subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and YouTube, where we do daily wrestling podcasts where we not only review AEW Dynamite, but also AEW Collision, Raw, SmackDown, the show formerly known as NXT 2.0. Pay-per-views, premium live events. We have interviews, roundtable discussions, and a round of the week complete. A very good quiz, of course, on WrestleCulture. As I said, they're joined by Hamflett and Sidgwick to review Double or Nothing, a wild show, Sidge. Long, but wild.
Well, this might be recency bias, considering it's just finished. But I had a good time with this show.
Yes.
I didn't. A slog of a show. I don't know if it's just the length, almost certainly the length, the frequency now of these long shows. It was just too long and baggy for me to, as a complete experience, enjoy the whole thing. It's not even takes on it, really, at this point. Everyone knows the matches that they should have cut. Less is more. Tony Khan's not going to learn that lesson. And this is my small, macro philosophical thing. I won't do it too long. Last year, me and Hamflett went to Las Vegas to watch it in person. We had a great time in the building, but also realizing, if I was watching it at home, I wouldn't have had the best time with this show. And I remember specifically the feedback was the amount of relentless interference across this show was not effective, especially when Karen Jarrett the whole game up with how good she was.
Yes. It wasn't getting top, that was it.
Not at all. And that was the big narrative, right? There's too much interference, that clean wins and losses mattering stuff kind of in the rear view now. And for the listening company, they sure didn't listen this year. The same again. But a lot of parallels with one of the most poorly received shows, which is not ideal.
I think the sense that, like, all of this conversation that we typically have around AEW is just starting to remind me of what happens with every promoter after long enough. You reach the point where you have seen what you perceive to be mistakes, and a lot of other people seem to agree. So you're not just on an island with stuff, but the same things keep happening. So what you have to learn and accept is that, well, that's just what the promoter does.
Take it or leave it. I said the exact same thing on X. It's the take it or leave it company more than it is the listening company.
And it's just this particular one about, pay-per-view length, I know, is this thing where if people time it out, the show might last the same length as like a WWE show or whatever, but it's always how it feels, isn't it? It's always how, could you, like, adding that match has hurt it, or the match going, like 3 or 4 matches getting 5 minutes more than needed, that's what's hurt it, that sort of thing.
I think there was a real discrepancy this year in terms of watching it and being there, because everyone I saw tweeted that were there saying, like, 10 out of 10, this show flew by.
The main event would have been the most fun things ever to be involved in.
Yeah.
But then a lot of people, like you say, on social media, is like, come on, 4.5 hours.
It's a slog, man. But Tony will never learn less is more. He is promoting ROH with no one telling him to do it. There's no rights fees involved. There's no TV. There's no pressure. It's for the love of the game, and Supercard was almost as long as this.
It just feels like we're in it.
It's just what he does, and it'll never be different.
I think that's where some of the fatigue is coming with, like, people criticising AEW for this, because a lot of people, once they just accept a flaw, and I do this all the time with stuff I like, but once they just accept it as a flaw, then after that it's like, well, there's no more you can add to this, there's no more you can say, and the promoter is not going to change. This is this is Shawn Michaels booking people looking at the hands. This is Vince McMahon using Big Show and Kane at all costs. This is one of Tony Khan's. It is not going anywhere. It doesn't mean that you feel great, and it does impact your enjoyment of the show. And I think there are a lot of, like, think pieces, podcasts like this one. There's always this, like, the takes are always valid, in my opinion, but I think that's where some of the fatigue is coming from, about, like, come on, like, this hasn't changed, so I might as well park this one straight away. But I think it's relevant because it always feels like something you do have to address at the top of the show, because it can negatively affect your investment as the show goes on.
And the atmosphere as well.
Yeah.
In their defense, I will say, I mean, it's partially down to them, because they also had Collision and Rampage and what have you. Like, it didn't help as a wrestling fan that you were like, we've got all the usual SmackDown, Collision, Rampage, and King and Queen of the Ring, and then this.
Yes, I think from the perspective of a content producer who works in this, maybe it is skewed. And I will say that Travis, one of our loyal listeners, great guy, thank you for your support, Travis, opened that question up on X, saying, is it just people within the industry who think it's too long, or are these shows simply too long for the fan experience? And there was a mixed response of, personally, yeah, I thought it was too long. Others were saying, and there's enough of them, and we should, reflect their voice, things along the lines of, if I'm paying $60, I want as much wrestling as possible. Yeah. I love these long shows. I can stay awake. I can stay enthused, energized. The more the merrier, or less is more. And there's, people are going to have different takes on that. I would argue that there are certain matches on this show where this crowd was like subconsciously telling the performers, no offense, I'm bored. Or no offense, this is missable. And there was more than one match where it felt like spot, a long time, a long quiet time to get to the next one, spot, which would indicate to me overall levels of fatigue. And I'm not really invested in this one, and that's only because you've got little time to promote it effectively or whatever. Enough people are saying the show's a slog to make it more than valid, in my opinion.
And then it can't be like a greatest of all time candidate, can it?
No, it can't.
That's like, it can be a good show, it can be all of these things, but then typically an AEW pay-per-view will have something so awesome that you are left thinking, well, hang on, where does this fit in like the all-timer list? Yeah. And all of that, the Sidgwick's joint just pointed out, takes that away. You simply can't be in the conversation of, it's like the old, pre-Dave's current era of ratings, it would have been a 5-star. It's like, well, that reflects perfection. Yeah. So if there's a single point during the match where he goes, it's 4 3/4. Yeah. It's only downwards from there. Like, every time an AEW pay-per-view gives you something amazing. And I see some of the comments, or I see sometimes we get like added in tweets where it's like, oh, I look forward to this review, and straight away the guy's gone in on this. But I think we do try and reflect like an overall experience, and I cannot wait to be as high as anybody else on the elements of like this main event, for example.
Yes.
But did I feel that like I've just sat through an all-timer thing? No. And that happens quite a lot with the pay-per-views.
I felt sorry for, and it turned out to be unfounded, but I felt sorry for Swerve coming out. I'm like, it's your world champion. People have already been like, he's kind of like potentially transitional with Will Ospreay, and maybe they put it on a little bit too late, and maybe they're not, putting him out there in the best possible way because he keeps getting beaten down, although that was, I think, recovered with the way they reintroduced Prince Nana before the pape. And he comes out, and I'm like, God, this crowd's gassed, and they know, we're going to get a drink, probably do it now, because we're going to get they might come and brawl next to us, and that'd be cool. So I think they did brilliantly to get through that.
Dynasty and Revolution. This was longer, correct?
Yeah. It felt longer. Like it anyway.
Didn't need to be. Did not need to be at all. Dynasty and Revolution.
I get it. It's sort of their mania a little bit, isn't it? Well, I suppose it's...
Did they build it like that?
Yeah.
They didn't really build it like that.
No, I suppose technically...
Dynasty and Revolution, long shows, incredibly across the board, well received. And it wasn't that much longer. This one just felt it for whatever reason. And I guess we'll go into it match by match.
Yeah. Deonna Purrazzo beat Thunder Rosa on the buy-in, and the Acclaimed beat Cage of Agony, just to cover that off. And then we opened with the AEW International Championship match. Roderick Strong Roderick Strong and his mates defending against Will Ospreay. A terrifying bump early on in this match.
Yeah, very regrettable, very scary. Basically, if you've not seen the show, upon interfering, the Kingdom had Will Ospreay in the Doomsday Device position. They do that sort of suicide Doomsday Device, if you like, and something went awry, and Ospreay's just landed on his head doing a backflip, and it looked pretty horrible.
We also had Wardlow getting involved at one point. Don Callis on commentary.
It's a bad booking or like a really good tactic from the Undisputed Kingdom, where it's like, well, we're not on telly much and people forget we exist. We can use that in our favor and just have Adam Cole appear or Wardlow interfere. People forget about that. What is it? Good strategy or bad booking? It's bad booking.
It's bad booking, I think, yeah.
I think I'm very much led by yourselves on this, and people like Simon Miller who do brilliant. Check out his ups and downs, of course. And I think even when he goes, because he sort of allows some stuff, and I think that's fair enough. I think when he with regards his ups and downs, like if there's a botch and it's just like that's just unfortunate, i.e. the Doomsday thing, he sort of lets it slide. Whereas if Wardlow's there like, I'm going to do it. And the referee has to be like, whoa, what's going on here? He's like, hang on a second. Regardless as well of Don Callis saying, kill him with the Tiger Driver. Ospreay won the title with the Hidden Blade, followed by the Stormbreaker. The right call? We talked about this in the preview.
If insofar as you kind of can't beat Ospreay yet, the right call potentially wasn't having him vie for the international title, but if you're going to do that, he has to win it. So, yeah, half right. They were half right here. This match was so close to being not only just great, it was pretty great, or really great for most of it. This was like really close to being that sort of idealized Ospreay match where you get that Ospreay feeling of how the have you just done that? Like, how the hell have you just done that? Versus that wasn't a capital D, capital M dream match where you're straining for epic. And because he's Ospreay, he's done it twice in AEW already. Yeah. You can't do it every single time. It has to feel a little bit normal. You can't say dream match every month. It's unfair, and you will normalize it. So this was like a really well-worked struggle that didn't, on the marquee, say this is going to be a 30-minute amazing, out-of-this-world match of your lifetime candidate, which I think is important to move away from. Like Roderick Strong's chops in particular was so gruesome and so wonderful. That really felt like Ospreay just had to make those comebacks. So you had this struggle element, you had this competitive element. It felt like a fight more so than we're going to go hog wild on moves, which I know is reductive, but you get what I mean. And you still had that Ospreay thing of like, how have you done that? The sort of, he flips over Strong like a snake coiling its prey, but like at warp speed, and then lifts them to go into a Styles clash. That's a terrible description, but you can't describe that which you rarely see. It was unbelievable. So you got that bit of the Ospreay match. You got that like less ostentatious, like course of business Ospreay match, and then this whole "why am I so violent" stuff. In context, it's very, very tricky to pull off when what's realistically the difference? And what's realistically the difference between the Tiger Driver 91, right, or him with the sharp point of his elbow, ostensibly what he's meant to be doing? Obviously, sleight of hand's a different thing, right? Sleight of hand makes him just clip the top of their heads or like the thing of the back. It just looks like he's just so good and his physical timing so great that it looks, for all the world, like he is driving the point of his elbow in the back of someone's head, right?
One of the most dangerous things you can ever do. That.
Indeed. But because he's such a genius, it's safe. It just doesn't look it right. What's the difference between that, in the realms of fiction, the difference between that and the Tiger Driver 91? I don't think there's a difference, and it's only the mythology of how it was used in all Japan that the Tiger Driver's this transgressive move. Should a move be transgressive in wrestling?
I've not got much else to add on the match.
And one more thing. The idea that they have to do this long drawn out separation between Callis and Ospreay, I've never bought it at all. Just didn't face.
I will say, before we get to your point, I may have said this already in like the Danielson match because it was so good, but that was face of God stuff, as you said. This is probably one of the first times since Ospreay's come back into AEW that I've bought a near fall. The bit where he's like, do it, and he's like, I can't do it, and then I can't remember, that was like a super backbreaker or whatever he hit him with, and I was like, oh, maybe they're gonna have him lose here, and then that's the split with Callis. So I actually have bought a near fall in an Ospreay match. So fair play.
It was effective. It's not my preferred kind of storytelling anymore.
Good idea, badly executed. I like this. A move is too dangerous. But they're getting this wrong for me. I liked it when it was a thing that was being discussed and Ospreay was almost trying to wave it away. He'd helped Bryan at the back and Callis didn't even really like that. You saw that as showing weakness. This is not, like, this would work if it was Callis sliding in a chair for him to do it on top of the chair. The referee is going, no, please don't, please. It's a wrestling move and this is a wrestling match. I hadn't even considered the Hidden Blade as a comparison, but every move is a move, you know? Yeah. Every move is designed to put your opponent down for a minimum of 3 seconds, like regardless of what that move is. And
if Danielson had a worked broken neck, this would have worked a lot better.
Biggest issue with it, Danielson's in the main event, kicking ass, fully fit. Yeah. Like you're not the...
They mentioned that he was injured. Did they?
No, not on the pay-per-view, I don't think. They might have done about him coming back to television. This is like the one that echoes for me, because the performance of it was so well portrayed at the time, was the Owen Hart Inzaguri on Shawn Michaels, and he's got the thing on and he comes back and it's like, he gets one headshot and it's like, has he come back too soon? So now, when they have their proper payoff, it's like, well, if you hit him with that, that's a different kind of headshot. That's how this should be being portrayed. But like Danielson's, like, not really. Like, he's, again, like, even if they sort of mention these injuries, it's not something that feels like it's been stuck with him. Ospreay's not inadvertently put 3 of the people on the shelf for this. He's just delivered it a couple of times with great effect. You're almost being asked to sort of question how awful is Don Callis for suggesting that he does this, which is not, again, the point of it. It was the referee that really pissed me off. No, please, Will. Like, what? So that he can hit me with one of his 15 career-ending backbreakers?
Yes.
Yeah.
What are you asking me not to do here? You know, it's
he's either good to go or he isn't. If he's principally interested in the safety of a performer who he thinks is injured, you call the match off.
Mm-hmm.
Story's good.
A great opener, yeah.
Like, Callis, like, wanting more of, like, Ospreay to be a sicker wrestler than he clearly is now, because he just enjoys being Will Ospreay, the best in the world. I like that story, I do, but...
You know what else is funny about the Hidden Blade comparison is that Will Ospreay has used the Tiger Drive 91 a few times, the Hidden Blade loads. He's actually injured someone for reals in a match with the Hidden Blade. Actually, no. Basically, they've storyline and its continuity exists between New Japan and AEW. I have to research this. Off the top of my head, I think Kota Ibushi got injured, concussed elsewhere in that Wrestle Kingdom match with Ospreay.
Okay.
But to get over the Hidden Blade, in continuity matters, they blamed it on the Hidden Blade. So if anything, he shouldn't be using the Hidden Blade if he cares. So, and I get it, a babyface shouldn't want to injure their opponents. They should just want to beat them. But Will Ospreay and New Japan continuity matters, whether, you know, it was accurately or not blamed on the Hidden Blade. He should not want to use that then. It's just it's a weird way to resolve something that doesn't necessarily need to be resolved in such a drawn-out way. This Ospreay with the Callis family, he's a good guy, and he should know by now that Callis isn't. Like, end of story.
Hell of a way to kick off the show, though.
That bit with the Styles Clash, I'm telling you, I usually just go, great. When I watch wrestling privately, there are certain moments, but once every 3 or 4 shows, where I explode with joy. There was like at least 3 of them on the show, and that was one of them. Like, how does he do it? It's ridiculous.
Oh, look at that. It's time for Story Time, Adam Cole. Because Adam Cole came out afterwards, said he shouldn't be here, should be back there with the Undisputed Kingdom and the Young Bucks and what have you, rebattle back home, rehabbing his ankle. But he's got the devil mask there, and he says, I'll be back and give the devil his due. And then the lights go out, and we see like a POV shot walking around a house, and it's all MJF stuff, and then the person behind the camera pulls out a picture, and it's Adam Cole, and then he pulls out another half of a picture, and it's MJF, and it was when the 2 of them were friends. And then MJF comes out. Oh, sorry. I thought that was his music there. You say the Triple H comparisons are obvious. And he comes out, and you're like, he's going to kick Adam Cole's ass, and then he's like, going to hug him, and you're like, what's going on here? Hugs him, then kicks him in the cack. Hits him with a brainbuster, calls him a noodle-armed bobblehead son of a bitch.
Great. Yeah. Now I'll never look at him the same.
Then didn't he say, get this staying out of my ring, whilst he starts cutting his promo? He says, well, trusted you, that's never happening again. Does the greatest wrestler in the world better than you, and you know it. But he doesn't need a New Japan or a Vince McMahon, because he made himself, basically. Not doing any more of those kangaroo kicks and all the associated BS. It's time for him to bring the hate again. And people are like, hate. And he gets the mask, and he says, masks adorn cowards who want to hide. He's done hiding and apologizing for the fact that he's the best. It's not his fault that all our favorites suck a big old bag of donkey dicks. This mask, everything it symbolizes can go straight to hell. He does the Ric Flair like elbow onto the mask. Says he's all in, double or nothing. And he says all the marks have been talking about his contract status, blah, blah, blah. And he tells the cameraman to zoom in. And he's got an AEW tattoo on his leg about betting on yourself. And he says, you can bet on me, and you can call me the Wolf of Wrestling because I'm not effing leaving. And, I thought, there it is.
Delivery was absolutely killer.
Looks incredible.
He looks like feels like a total megastar all over again. Absence will do that. The subtext was not exactly hard to detect. It was very much a mea culpa. It went wrong towards the end of my last run. I recognize why it went wrong. I'm telling you it went wrong. I'm doing this in a bid to reassure you that from this moment on, this will be the genesis. From this moment of of Maxwell Jacob Friedman. He just felt like he needed to be back. He felt dialed in. The audience clearly missed him. His presence, what he can bring to the table, this renewed, motivated. I've had my first ever lull in this precocious career. That ain't happening again.
People were writing his obituary already, weren't they? Like, he's kind of lost. It's like he's had one bad program.
The TLDR on this, it was totally electrifying. Did this mean not? I mean, I'm in favor of them not. I mean, they should have just after Grand Slam pivot. Like, especially after World's End when neither of them can do the program and they were acting like the program could happen. This felt like, right, we're done. We can't do it. We're not going to do it. It's pointless trying to do it. Let's move on. Maybe down the line we can
AEW's moved on. The title situation is completely different.
Oh, yeah, of course.
New people in there. You said this on X, though, didn't you?
I put this on X. I don't think the most pointed Triple H tribute was the jacket. It was remember the time he just beat up Sheamus?
Yeah.
It was that. It was like, anyway, I want more important things, and here they are. Like, this felt very much like that, and I don't think anyone was complaining. I was clenching my fists and roaring MJF through this because I was getting pissed off with it at the back end of last year. I was nowhere near as alienated as a lot of people were. And I think I've been vindicated by this. AEW was not magically recovered in MJF's absence, and he was eating a lot of for like a lot of the flaws of what was clearly a product that was on the decline in a number of different areas. And it was just his title reign or whatever he was doing creatively at the time that was used as a stick to beat AEW. There's loads of stuff wrong with it. And MJF was maybe one of those things. And here he was, like, in character as best as he could, saying, like, no more of this, no more of this. And what was helpful was that he was so dialed in, even as that character that a load of people hated, that he could weave, like, reality and kayfabe together here. He could make it seem like he was locked into a friendship with Adam Cole when really what he was locked into was a character that people didn't like. And it felt fairly seamless. This was as good a version of that sort of worked shoot thing as you're going to get. And like a brain buster on an injured man after kicking him low and calling him a stain. It's like, like, what even do you go back? That in old wrestling terms, it's like, well, if you've just beaten the guy you've done that to, what are you even getting out of it? The Wembley match doesn't even feel on the table now, does it? You know?
In one night, he did that which he struggled to do, and in his defense, a load of his predecessors and contemporaries have struggled to do, and that is retain that which connected you to the audience when you are playing a babyface character. If he can continue this form, there'll be no stopping him.
I had a few things I anticipated before coming into the office today. One of them I think I'm going to get right. There's going to be several matches on this card that you're going to say they can take 5 minutes off of.
And I think the first one's coming up.
If not more. And the other thing I thought, I checked your X because you're far more knowledgeable about this sort of thing than I am. And I was convinced there was going to be a quote tweet from you from one of those accounts that are like, MJF's back and he's better than ever. So you agree? So you agree that when we were, saying this isn't as good as it used to be, and they were like, this is the best. I was convinced that was what we were going to get.
I do try not to.
Yeah.
I do try. I mean, I fail.
It's old ground. I don't like going over it, but I just thought you can't, on the one hand, say everything MJF's done ever. I love it, but I agree with both of you that he seemed to admit here, that didn't really work. I did it. But then also at the time say, well, no, don't.
I've just said I try not to do that. About half an hour ago, I did it in a list entry I'm working on. Of that Logan Paul shot from Queen and King and Queen of the Ring. Oh, it's like, look how great it is now that we're rid of Vince and Kevin Dunn. Well, you loved it at the time.
Yes.
And I told you it was bad, and he said I was an idiot. I'm biased.
Question about this, obviously. Like, thank you for enhancing my experience this show. Like, you must have known this in advance months, probably. And
I didn't want to spoil it.
No, shut up, man. Get to the next match.
Appreciate you.
Next match was the Bing Bing Ging. Jay White, Austin Gunn, and Colton Gunn. I was like, I feel like, that's a bit harsh. They have to follow that. Versus Death Triangle.
This is a Death Triangle. Is the trios division. Like, you should be like, here we go, perfect. Isn't it? Like, this is what I'm told constantly about wrestlers like this in matches like this. Piss poor this. I didn't like this one,
but it wasn't good.
I don't like this at all.
I was just genuinely absolutely ecstatic to see Juice Robinson back.
Yes.
That was my main takeaway from this. The Bang Bang Gang, I should say, Bang Bang Gang retained courtesy of Juice Robinson's interference. White hit the pack with a Blade Runner to retain. But I don't know whether it was just the come down of MJF being back or what. My experience of this was just kind of like, Right, it's just the classic of like wrestling happening in front of me. I
Yeah,
just feel terrible because they were killing each other for this.
At least 2, if not 3 matches that just had no real reason to be on this card. This was certainly one of them. Some of the work, some of the counters, that's quite good. Oh wow, the guns mesh well with the Lucha Bros. You're not meant to be thinking in these really sort of like almost bargaining for its quality, pointing out quite good things as opposed to being electrified by this big climactic pay-per-view encounter. Like, they can't even call this match, and maybe 1 or 2 more, certainly 1, you can't even call them glorified TV matches because the AEW TV matches generally are of an amazing standard.
Yeah.
And this was a gentleman's 3. This move for move, decibel level for decibel level, happens on a Dynamite, and you think, it was a shame. It's pay-per-view. All it does is get in the way and drains the energy bar from that audience. This is worse than inoffensive. Content inoffensive, which is not what you want on TV, let alone pay-per-view, but it's an imposition on the rest of the card.
That's why I can never, obviously, it's a different position we're in, very privileged as well, but that's why I can never quite relate to I've spent $60, so I want everything of everything.
You can, Chris Boy.
Well, you'd think that, wouldn't you?
I would think that.
Including seeing, all my favourites, because I get that element of it. I want to see all my favourites too, but then what is it you want to see out of them? Because what is it you're, if you want to see, I want Pac to be on the card, because I want the feeling that a Pac match gives me, and this one did not do that. I want to be reminded of why Jay White, the good side of why Jay White is such a divisive figure, and where exactly does Jay White fit in wrestling, and this match did not give you that. I sense creatively AEW has given up on the Lucha Brothers, just my speculation, but the way they're used on television means that I've got no reason to invest in them ever again. So, oh God, I've seen all the Phoenix spots, and I've seen them in situations where they mean more. So that's done. Penta could drop 100 guys in his necks, and I'll never give a shit ever again. And I think there are 3 people with the surname Guns that are stealing a living, quite honestly, in AEW. They're not for me.
Billy is.
But I think they all are. I think the Bang Bang Gang and how fun that group is. I love the promos. And it was so amazing to see Juice Robinson back. I felt so energized by his return.
Juice, Mercedes, MJF, and Will, all them to come on Dynamite, one would assume, promos-wise.
That means less time for Takeshita.
Oh my God.
It's fresh.
Don't get me started.
I think it made me realise how desperately I was in need of that freshness of those names and what they're all up to. That's what I want to know. How many Guns matches have been good?
I think stealing a living.
These are passable, but stealing a living.
That's harsh. It's hyperbole.
That is harsh, I guess. But I don't want to watch them ever. So
it is harsh. They're not necessarily using their political influence to be utter crap, like Billy Gunn and Chris Jericho.
Yeah. Would you book them ever though?
I'm in the middle of a point. The point is, I think they've been pushed beyond their level. I don't think they're stealing a living. I think that's way harsh. I wouldn't necessarily put them on pay-per-view. But that's stealing a living. I think that's too much.
I was just watching this and I wish I wasn't watching it.
Yeah, same.
Same. Let's move on.
Billy Gunn's stealing a living.
To the Women's World Championship match. Timeless Toni Storm versus Serena Deeb. A match, Sid and I previewed this and said, obviously, fairly confident of a Toni Storm retention. But I suppose the story of this match, aside from Serena Deeb stretching her all over the place, was what was going on outside the ring. Since that's probably also going to be followed
it's a theme
on Dynamite, with Mariah May wanting to throw the towel in, and then Luther saying no, and then Tony bollocking him.
She can just watch it back.
Granted,
she won't though. There's continuity there. She says she never watches it back.
Yes,
she's mentioned that before as a way to explain when the turn eventually happens. Yeah.
Did she not say that she doesn't watch Mariah May's matches, not necessarily her own?
No, because you don't remember. I don't watch wrestling. Do you remember that line in her promo?
Yeah. Okay.
She's got to stay in for all of this.
Okay. It's a bit wafer thin, but I'll go with it.
We had a kick out from a Storm Zero, a kick out from a pair of Deep Toxers, including one on the apron. But a top rope pile driver and a Storm Zero allowed Toni Storm to retain.
The dynamic didn't help at all, remotely. And I would say as well, I thought the last 3 minutes were exhilarating, genuinely. I'm a massive mark. I am so easily got by, well, how good's she? If they're going to do a top rope variation of the finish, I'll watch her going forward. She's been protected. I'm doing a dickhead voice, but that's genuinely how I feel. I love a top rope variation of the finish. Gets me every time. The last 3 minutes were excellent. I think they just clicked really late into this match. But what was weird was I thought a lot of this under-delivered, not just in terms of the dynamic or the atmosphere. It did feel flat at times. There was just a lack of flow for much of the body of this match when it would just seem like they were doing something, stop, and then Tony Storm would drop it with a power move. It just felt like disjointed, and the last 3 minutes was so well done that I would describe this as it met my expectations, got there in the end. But for much of this, I was just like, oh, I don't know what's happening here, but there's a flow issue.
Do you know what I think the big tell of that was? You were supposed to, I think, anyway, I read this, you were supposed to feel so much more for how potentially broken Tony Storm's leg was when Serena Deeb did that double dragon
It looked
screw.
bad. No, the stamp.
And nobody cared.
I don't think they looked particularly good either. Didn't look vicious.
There was a couple of times where the leg stuff just got dropped or Tony Storm just sort of stopped selling it. Certainly never enough to make you think it was going to factor into a finish or like this is how Serena Deeb wins.
Like a single leg crab was going to get her to...
Yeah, there was a lot of that. And then it was like, as you say, Tony Storm would just do a power move to take back over again for a bit. And it was like, is there even a story here? And it felt very much like the build in that respect. Like, I'm not so stupid that I can't work out who's the babyface and the heel in this segment, but am I supposed to think the same the following week? It was happening in
It's a bit on commentary where they said, what a heel. And I was like, well, if we got there in the end, we finally established this.
It was one of those times when you're watching wrestlers trying to find their way to something great.
But you're right, the finish was fun.
The last 2 minutes were great.
Yeah. Storm Zero off the top rope, it looked class.
Yeah.
Was the one, was it a DDT or a pile drive when Malenko did it to Scotty Too Hotty? And I was like, I've just witnessed a murder.
Yeah. Darby Allin, John Moxley, their first Dynamite match late 2019. He got the paradigm shift from the top rope. That you actually hurt his neck there.
Aye. The elevator to put him over.
Yeah.
He'll elevate one to put a guy over.
Yeah. Orange Cassidy, Trent Beretta next.
Skip.
I paused there for that exact reason.
Skip. Again, this wasn't a glorified... Do the finish in a minute. I'll move on personally. If you want to add things, you can. This wasn't even a glorified TV match because the TV matches are usually great.
Yeah.
This is underwhelmed in the ring twice. This was clearly a chapter of a storyline that was made for TV that, for whatever reason, maybe Tony Khan just likes Orange Cassidy. He's dressed up as him once upon a time, so it checks out. This had no business being on the pay-per-view. And again, I made the point, and you're going to hear a lot more often if this trend continues. I didn't think less of Gunther, WWE superstar. Hate that terminology, but you know what I mean? It's theirs. When he didn't really wrestle that much on PLEs throughout the back half of 2023. Because I'm not a child who needs to be placated and reminded of, this one wrestles on pay-per-view. They're a star. So I know they're a star. There's a million different ways to build them as such. Less could so often be more. This is the ultimate example of this does not need to be on this show. This doesn't feel remotely worthy of a pay-per-view. The finish was odd as well.
There's a couple of matches on this show, and I can't work out whether I didn't like the match generally, or I was just angry that the finish wasn't not even necessarily the one we predicted, but just the one I'd hoped for. Like, I just obviously sat here with both of you and said, well, Trent obviously wins this one, and they're obviously going in a completely different direction because he's seemingly quit AEW for the time being. But I was like, obviously Trent wins this one, and you get the big stepped-up blow-off, perhaps factoring in Chuck Taylor or however you want to do that. And there was another the Moxie match as well. I was like, well, obviously Takeshita wins that, and then because I want to see more Takeshita and da-da-da-da-da. So I can't tell whether that was... I suppose this match was more cut and dry, like you say, because it was just a bit like, like on a show with so much bombast and what have you. Beretta did spike Cassidy with a pile driver on the ring apron. There was a beach break off the apron to the floor. But as Beretta was trying to submit Cassidy, I think it was, he reversed into a pin.
This is a WWE babyface match for me. This was like, he can't lose and he must be on the pay-per-views. Really?
I think there's another one coming as well.
I'm nearly 39 years old. And that thing is, they go for me as well. I'm their target audience. I don't need to be placated like this. I truly don't.
I was watching live, and this is where I fell asleep. And honestly, Trent and Orange Cassidy's been one of the stories, at least, I've been more interested in. But the match just couldn't keep me awake at our daft time, but all hold my attention in general. It's like, obviously, we're working forward. It's wrestling. It always has to work that way. Don Callis later on this pay-per-view excitedly mentioned about, he didn't name Orange Cassidy, but you were led to believe he's thinking, that's where all this has been going. So now, if and when there's a turn, and if and when it's not Orange Cassidy rejects him, and it's Trent that takes his place. So however this plays out, why?
Trent's a loser.
Get Orange Cassidy. Like he's.
They did make sure to mention that the Cassidy. He said Cassidy's great and he's going to offer a contract, but he never said to Cassidy.
That's it, yeah.
Why
would you not?
We're getting ahead of ourselves.
But based on this evidence, why would Don Callis not watch this and be like, well, I want Orange Cassidy, and then watch Takeshita and Moxley after? Sorry to jump ahead and go, well, I've backed the wrong horse here. I'll take you as well if I can get you.
Yeah.
In fact, I did have you once. We worked together a little bit last year. I want more of that. Like, wrestling just does these things.
Yeah.
But when, again, like, to get the wider point about these pay-per-views having more than they need, like, to have a match like this, which feels excess, and then only have, like, questions that sort of damage the narrative a bit more, I've not left feeling excited as I was. Trent should have won.
Well, let's roll on to the next match. It's the FDW Championship match. I'm learning tree. Chris Jericho.
The show was not an all-timer.
It
wasn't, was it?
Nah.
Revolution and Dynasty were?
Yeah.
Chris Jericho, Hook, and Shibata, who really enjoyed kicking the crap out of Jericho early on. Tables are introduced. Kendo sticks are obviously utilized.
Total excess given what you were anticipating in the main event as well.
And then Jericho does his what's in the bag, and it's dice, which must.
What's in the bag? We're going to do that next time.
Yes, next FDW title.
We are debuting a new game, and it is called What's in the Bag? The next time that there's an FTW title match in a certain city in America, we're going to then have identifying characteristics of those cities. Like, it's like, for an example, if we're going to play this game, right, okay. So far it's been hockey pucks in Canada or little dice, so like an assortment of the same item. What if he wrestles in New York City and it's just a big apple?
Or like it backfires and they're in Philadelphia and it's just a bunch of cheesesteaks and it's super comfy. Oh, God.
It's cushion the blow.
My mouth full of cheesesteaks.
Or I got one of my kids a little mini Liberty Bell pencil sharpener. It's like little mini Liberty Bell souvenirs if he wrestles in Philadelphia.
I'm so excited for this game.
I don't want to see it.
It's finally worked. I want to play this game.
I'm such a loser by that. It's just reminded me over the weekend, Anne-Louise decided she wanted to watch National Treasure. Christian Cage? No, that's the wrong one. Nicolas Cage, the movie with that in, and the Liberty Bell features in that. And I was like, I've been to see that. That's such a, congratulations. Quite a lot of people like that. It's a national landmark. So I was such like, been there. But yeah, we'll play that game next. I still think that dice must have sucked to fall on. They're like, normally they go like hockey pucks and then a couple of spots on there or he hoys it at their face, which again, Jesus.
Go
But like there was a lot of suplexes onto them. And like there was a bit where Jericho was just walking around and it was just still embedded in his back. And I was like, God, that's got to be rough to bump onto.
It was a rough match as well.
Yeah. Anyway, there was a bit where Shibata and Hook are on the top rope and Chris Jericho's laid on a table. I say laid on a table going like this, waiting. And he does was it like a Death Valley driver he was going for?
One of those spots where if you conceive of it, how could you not conceive of it going that wrong? It's not going to look clean, like a nice, I don't know, like even a 450 through a table, you know how it's going to go smoothly. Looks devastating. This is always going to look, it was always going to go awry.
Things almost went even worse with Big Bill going through that table and how close he came. I mean, it was solid metal, but it looked like it could have like impaled him when, I should say, Big Bill got involved to stop Hook from winning. And Hook T-bone suplexed him off the apron through a table.
And that made the way for...
that cleared everything out, and they're doing the dual submission thing because that's what happened in the triple threat. But a masked man appears, gets involved with a bin, and it is revealed to be bounty hunter Brian Keith.
And he's going to sit under the...
learning tree.
Correct.
Because this Jericho is going to like start calling him Keith Bryan or something. You know, he does that wacky stuff for people.
Yeah.
Like, bounty hunter. Well, there's a bar right here.
Yeah, there we go. You'd love that. You can join the learning tree if he gives out free bounties.
Yeah. Jericho won amongst all this madness, by the way.
What a waste of time. What just a way to placate one man's ego. a total waste of time. I can only really vividly recall that one spot, the Death Valley Driver gone awry, and it was one of those like, maybe this accounts for how long the show was, because that felt like it went on 5 minutes or 10. That struggle atop the top turnbuckle, and he was like, you could see it in Shibata, like, how can I make this not go wrong? How can I make this not go wrong? This process felt like an eon. He's like, I can't. I was gonna have to eat crap here and just do it. Mostly heatless, an odd bit of dice. Just a total waste of time. A total waste of time.
There was also a tiny bit of me that went, how do you know his shoulders are down on the mat if he's inside a bin? But none of that really matters. But I don't know
Save
why.
the same energy for the King and Queen of the Ring.
Oh, don't you worry. I'll save some energy for King and Queen of the Ring.
Oh my god.
Shut up, man.
I hate that Nia Jax spot, even you.
Yeah.
Sorry. Where are my manners? Queen Nia. I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll review it tomorrow. Anything else you want to say about the FTW title match?
Not a f***ing thing.
Right. We'll move on to Mox versus Takeshita. Title.
God, this show is not. I'm gonna level with you. I don't think it was very good. The last three matches. Thank God for them.
Yes.
Thank Christ for them.
This was a weird old bit of business, this match, wasn't it?
So I was like, what am I watching here?
Is this a bit of a Wilborn pilled show for you then? Like, you've come in, because and you said this, I think, when we talked about it this morning about when
Best in Show is a Wilborn pill show, because that's about a dog, which you are.
I'm just saying, like, you came in and we were like, yeah, it's a good show. Long, but a good show. And then you said, as you went back through it, you were like, oh, but there's the last few.
Yeah,
Stick
that
in your head.
recency bias.
Yeah. Takeshita versus John Moxley.
What was this?
An injured John Moxley who kicked out of everything and won with the steel chair that Takeshita had introduced.
How injured is he?
I don't know, actually.
Because he sold as if he was really injured.
Yeah.
He sold as if, oh my God, how did he get cleared?
He sold as if he's been told he's got to lose to Evil and he's going to politically work his way through, he's going to work his way through that as best as he can by having a 2-week mummified bandage about so when Evil beats
It looked like he could do nothing. It looked like every single movement was causing him pain. I don't know where I fall on this. If
a shoulder breaker on the apron and they did it in slow-mo and I was like, that's a hell of a sell if that's just a sell.
If he's selling here, it's that too good. You know when we talked about Copeland versus Buddy Matthews, which evoked Matthews versus Andrade for one of the early collisions.
ad break things where he does a thing before the ad break, like, oh, is that real or not?
Yeah,
like,
where he goes so hard on one sell, where rather than it's like too convincing, it's like, well, are you really that injured? It's not dramatic, this. It's not like a good bit of selling. Yeah. It's like, I'm worried if you can complete the match. So that was like, if it was just pure selling, it was like too good, if anything. And if he isn't that broken, this match sure was, because it was so tedious. They had this frantic, unbelievable chemistry once upon a time, where it was like the perfect fusion of a fight, a competitive brawl in a fight, with some incredibly spectacular offense. Like almost the perfect TV wrestling match where feels real, looks spectacular. So hard to get that middle. It really is. It's like, you know what, computer game, I can't remember off the top of my head, a video game, sorry, where like there's a bar and it goes bam, bam, bam from side to side and you've got to guess where the middle is. Like maybe they used to do penalties like that on old football games where it goes bang, 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 bang. You have to like press it in time. That's how well they intersected a fight that just looks cool as all hell. This was one of the most boring. I would think it was impossible for Konosuke Takeshita to wrestle a match that was this boring. This was AEW's equivalent of, you know what, was methodical, but everything made sense and every spot logically built on the last. I was bored to tears and I was genuinely mystified by how tedious this was. When the best thing you can say about a match is, well, it made sense for him to do this, and then it made sense for that wrestler to counter that, so they could then... I was bored stiff.
I got real flashbacks, and this is a bad name to be invoking off the back in King and Queen of the Ring, of old Randy Orton matches where the commentators, as I think they did here, saying, methodically slowing down the pace here. And that's not what I want from my wrestling.
Yeah, not from these two. Not from these two.
I just look there, at least according to Wikipedia, that match, the Mox Takeshita, was shorter than Ospreay Strong I'd have put another fight. I'd have said it's like 5 minutes longer.
Believe how long this was going as I was watching it unfold.
The result really didn't help as well, did it?
No,
you
that
might
was
have
the
been
other
left
match that I was angry about.
might have been left in a better mood if Takeshita had got the win, because you're like, well, look, almost now it doesn't matter about that match not being very good, because this is a huge win for him. And I know, like, you've got to, for a win to matter over Jon Moxley, he has to win as much as he does. Maybe not quite as much, but nearly as much as he does. But this one in particular,
egregious.
Felt like a win too far, didn't it? It's like, I couldn't compare this to like
Shouldn't have booked the match.
No, that was it. I couldn't like compare this to like a Hogan comeback or like John Cena at SummerSlam with a Nexus, but the nature of which it was like, right, time to go home, Death Rider, 1, 2, 3, I'm still Jon Moxley. It's like real bad taste in the mouth stuff, this, and it reminded you, like, if there's a political game at play where, even though they're not going to let him just go on Dynamite like he did against Hobbs and defend the title, New Japan that is, like, they're not having him get beat here because otherwise that damages their match with Evil, then, well, number one, come to a better arrangement to take the belt off him, because it's clearly creating problems with AEW storylines. Number two, allow there to be a bit more boldness with the people that are going to beat Moxley, because that could benefit New Japan too. If Takeshita beats him here, what if New Japan hosts the title match itself and Moxley wins that one? This was just unsatisfying across the board.
Yeah.
Like, there wasn't much that felt right.
Action, drama.
I fell into a bit of a grumpy Adam Wilborn here, because I was annoyed that Takeshita had lost. I was annoyed that Mox had been able to win the match in the manner that he did. And I think Takeshita hit him with like a big Death Rider as well, didn't he?
Yeah.
And I was like, there's your finish right there. And then it went straight into the next match, which just had bucket loads of kickouts as well. And I was a bit like, what are we doing here?
It's the XS problem.
And the fake out of like, haha, we're actually siding with Adam Copeland. No, we're not. I was like, what's this? What are we doing here? Anyway,
I'll tell you what, I will say, stick around on this podcast. A lot of praise will be leveled at the final 3 matches, a lot as well.
And I apologise in advance for missing some spot that someone nearly died in the main event, probably, because there's so many to keep count of. I'll try and hit them all. We're going to talk about TNT Championship next. Were you happy? Because I saw the not the match. Right? We'll get to that. But I saw the bit, low in the big cage. And I saw the bit at the top, and I was like, oh no. And then I saw, just as they did close-ups on the wrestlers, I was like, oh, they have weaved it into the cage. Yeah. So at least they...
I made the point where WWE brain is still so much of a thing that I couldn't help but recall No Way Out 2005.
Yeah.
And it's like, unless the Big Show and JBL can levitate, and I don't think they can, how they're going to get the drama from those don't go close because you're going to get your flesh ripped apart. It just didn't work. And this match, for different reasons, for me personally, did not work.
Copeland versus Malachi Black for the TNT
How long did this go?
20 minutes and 20 seconds.
So many matches. Shave 5 minutes off.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
I will say this. I did
macro philosophical problem by having so many quote unquote star names is that now there's Copeland, Ospreay, Swerve, now MJF, and there'll be others where there's this 15 strong top echelon of wrestlers who need to win or feel the need to win long ass matches, and it's just crushing everything. Like what happened to the nice brisk 12 minute mid card match with the tier of star whose egos you must appease. All right, you'll get you 20 minutes. Then the next one, there's another one. Oh yeah, Moxley, you can have your nearly 20 minutes. Who's the next one? Copeland, you can have your nearly 20 minutes. It's out of control. This narrative ecosystem is broken.
I will say I did like near the beginning of the match the fact that they didn't go for pinfalls after 2 minutes. Because I think the commentary even mentioned and still no one's gone for a finish in this. And I was like, yeah, they hate each other and they want to bloody each other up and they want to dominate. And they know that just because they've been busted open, which Malachi Black was pretty much immediately, a DDT isn't going to win you this match. But, oh boy, like you say, it went a lot longer than that. There was a barbed wire bat that got grinded into Copeland's forehead, and he got busted open and powerbombed off the ropes through a table. Copeland, I still think we're still waiting for an update because he was obviously limping after the match. At one point, got Malachi Black on a table, wrapped him in barbed wire, then climbed to the top rope, then climbed to the top of the cage and jumped off with an elbow drop at an angle I thought, that doesn't seem... I don't know what the good fall
It was giving
is.
Randy Savage.
Yeah, he landed on his feet. It was just a crumple.
I just got very scared when he did that. And then I think... Is it Malachi who got knocked out the door? Or one of them gets knocked out the door regardless. I think it was Copeland, actually, with a kick from Malachi Black. And then out comes Brody King and Buddy Matthews. Teased changing allegiances and then just beat the crap out of Adam Copeland anyway. And they beat him up. They wrap him in barbed wire. There's even a barbed wire crown on his head. Someone dressed as Jesus on the front row I saw as well. And suddenly, I should say, we had Adam Copeland Brood entrance, because this factors in later when, as they're about to, finish him off. I should not look in there. The lights change, spooky music, and here comes Gangrel to make the save. He takes out King and Matthews with Impaler DDTs, but gets nailed by Malachi Black's end kick. And in the end, Malachi Black, not pinned or submitted, simply a referee has thought of you. A referee stopped.
You know what? If you wanted to beat the allegations, you would just do it once, wouldn't you?
A barbed wire assisted crossface.
I think I like him, actually. He's got to go like
causes him to pass out.
It's good pattern.
And give him his second singles loss other than the Cody Rhodes match, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tell you what, man. Oh, God.
That's good.
I really, really like the last three matches. A great deal.
Yes.
A great deal. Two more than one. Oh, my. Where to start with this? As an actual match, it did feel like he's setting up a big spot and the narrative tissue literally got punctured by barbed wire because I couldn't really see it or feel it. Like an eerie, disquiet spot. Some assembly, eerie, disquiet. Again, it didn't flow particularly well. I don't think this was a good end-to-end match at all. That the one big spot was so distractingly bad and worrying that I just couldn't really get on board with like a terrible idea for a finish. All right, Tony Khan, if you look at the way he books, he's almost it's like the opposite end of the extreme to other Vince McMahon. Where it's like, he is as much a Santa Claus to the top stars as he is a pro wrestling booker / storyteller. If you look at what he's done with Danielson, which I'm in favor of because I like Danielson. So maybe people, in their defense, they like Copeland and they are happy that Copeland is getting to do this, quite frankly, masturbatory, self-referential stuff to close out his career. I don't think it's absorbing storytelling. I really don't. I think he's got a little Christmas list of what he wants to do, and he gives it to Santa Tony, and Santa Tony gives him his presents, and it's not a good it's not a good character arc, it's not good storytelling, it's what does this wrestler want to do? I'm paying him loads of money and I like him. Oh, you can do what you want. I find it so self-indulgent, this Copeland stuff.
So you're saying Tony Khan gets this list and looks at it and he goes, check. You want to do a reunion with Gangrel? Check. You want to work with Christian Cage? Check. It's just masturbation. The self-referential Adam Copeland run, for me, scans as pure masturbation. There's a bit of a backlash online about this afterwards, wasn't it? People running through saying he's only really lost to Roman Reigns since returning.
That's all right, though, because the ratio of offense in the matches themselves offsets that completely. I understand that he's working hard and all the rest of it. I work hard. I get up at 5 a.m. I get up at 5 a.m. to watch NXT every week. Don't tell me that's no worse than barbed wire. Don't tell me that I don't feel my kneecaps explode from the fall from a great height. That is watching the Tony D'Angelo family every Wednesday morning.
So what you said is that place is the Performance Center.
Indeed, it is.
That's my Santa list.
I don't think much of the match, right? There are two sides to Edge, and he's very interested in showing you those two sides because he goes from this place to that place, okay? There are two sides to Adam Copeland, and they are Jack Reacher and the Great Muta. Quite frankly, I buy neither of them. So you've got Grizzled Cope, who's like, presents himself as way more hardened and violent, a brawler than he ever was when he was at his peak on WWE TV.
Oh, it's different gravy from the Copa here. Like, he's not been this guy before. Ever. Like, I'm really enjoying this weird run, but he's never been him. He's like, finally, guys. Like, I've been waiting to let loose.
So he goes on like he's Jack Reacher half the time. And now with Brood Edge, he genuinely seems to think, or is trying to portray, that this alter ego is like his version of the Great Muta. It's, to me, as laughable as the Painmaker, which is what Jericho's obviously trying to do Muta here. I'm once again telling you that the Brood were never over. I was there. 1998. The first Raws and those cum-soaked campuses.
Great
Sonics. Right, I'm telling you now, the Brood were never over. They had an absolutely bitch and tits entrance. It was bitch and tits. It was KEWL cool, right? It was awesome.
It was.
The thing is, it was never really that over when the bell rang. And the Brood are famous for two things. The freaks come out at night. 1. 2, the entrance. 3 things. 3, being the act that held Edge and Christian back from being over. They were never over. The Brood were not over. You only get Kazu, Edge, and Christian with their banter and the 5-second pose stuff. That's when they got over. The Brood was not an overact. And for me to have this Mandela effect imposed upon me of the Brood being intimidating and scary, and it's just a load of absolute shit. And I'm not having it. I'm absolutely not having it. Honestly, rather than being the Great Muta, if you think about this, Copeland bringing back Brood Edge, yes, the entrance was cool, right? Copeland bringing back Brood Edge for what good it actually did for his career is not remotely dissimilar to Cody Rhodes going, I'm going to be Stardust for the night. And I'm dead serious. Or, Roman Reigns, I'm going to be Liaki.
Yeah.
The Brood were never over, and I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
Nice to see Gangrel, though.
Right. This was a remarkably effective use of Gangrel. When he did the entrance with the Bucks as the Hardys, he looked in like a lot of pain. He looked like he's getting on, right? Like facially, looks like Gangrel from 1998, but in every other respect, as wrestlers do, looks like he's lived a life on the road, right? To have him already appear in the ring so he doesn't have to make a run in, sort of inspired.
Yeah.
There's just this tiny pocket of space with which he occupies with his big DDTs. Like the bumps look like they're absolutely knacked. A fair play. Like you give it Big Beans doing his big DDT and stuff. And then when they're carrying each other out, it looks like he's helping Edge to the back. So you've disguised all of Gangrel's weaknesses in one pretty hot sequence. I loved Gangrel in this, and it was just about the only thing I loved, to be honest. I hate what I have said this a million times in these podcasts.
I've got a nostalgic affection for Gangrel.
Yeah, barbed wire is pretty much my least favourite.
But he wasn't good.
I thought he was good here. I thought this was like...
but like, it's not like an intimidating...
No.
He's not Kevin Sullivan or The Undertaker, is he?
He shouldn't be smashing through the House of Black by himself. Yet again, you were reminded of like, they can say all the scary stuff they want. When push comes to shove, they lose and it's easy to beat their ass. Like, you could just need to be like a 50-year-old with a handy DDT and you'd be fine. Like, actually, that's more realistic than I thought because Billy Gunn did that as well. So yeah, like, most people beat them up in the end. Like, so I like that.
Our only weakness, 50-year-old.
50-year-olds who weren't really that over in the Attitude Era unless they were in a certain act.
That was my Road Dogg was complimenting that picture of Tony's dad because he wanted to beat up the House of Black.
By humping them.
Like this sequence, that was quite fun. The rest of the match, I did not. I don't like barbed wire, but one of the reasons is a lot of the time it's used in matches where like the atmosphere isn't that hot, so the guys are like really hurting when people are really hurting each other and you're bored. It's about the worst combination of things in wrestling. I was bored for 90% of this. Cringed at that elbow bump as much as I've got like all the again, this Adam Copeland attempting to be Terry Funk in ECW 97 stuff. I am so in on how much he likes that I kind of like him in real life, but his stories and his matches a lot of the time are like, what the hell was that? Like, I'd much rather see an Adam Copeland straight up TNT match than him slapping a load of gimmicks and nonsense on it.
Greatest hits with B-sides. It's weird.
It's
weird, man. I find it honestly bizarre.
I don't know where you go with the House of Black next. Like, who can they torture next?
He got his wedding
I think
ring back,
Malachi Black's gone.
Yeah, maybe.
He might be right.
I wouldn't pick up the contract. It's not necessarily what I think of the performer or whatever. You take away the House of Black and you repackage. You take away one of those acts that kind of has to win more often than not. AEW needs them like I need a gun to the head.
I should mention, by the way, I forgot to mention earlier, speaking of bringing things back, nice to hear Where Is My Mind for Orange Cassidy. That was a real highlight for me.
Love it.
Right, one of our 3 triple main events now. A lot of pressure on this one, without question. TBS Championship match, Willow Nightingale versus a debuting Mercedes Moné.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
This is what she does.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, where are my manners? Where is my manners? Willow Nightingale versus the in-ring debut of Mercedes.
Money. Money.
What are you doing? I looked over your way there and I was just like, oh, God.
At least I've got rhythm.
That's fine. You're very welcome to it. I just couldn't look at it. It was so...
You're going like that? Dad? Dad, having a dance?
You need to watch that back.
No, you need to watch your mouth.
Like, where's the f***ing Osprey? And he looked weird.
What are you doing, Chavo Guerrero?
Whoa. Let's not say things we can't take back.
They both tried to shatter each other's ankles in this match.
This match ruled.
Yeah.
Great story. At one point, Willow had the match won, despite everything Mercedes pulled out. Had the match won with a powerbomb, but unfortunately, Stokely Hathaway and Chris Statlander were up on the apron arguing with the ref and missed it. Turned around by the time the ref starts counting, then it's only getting a 2 count. Moné eventually hits a Moné Maker finisher. 1, 2, 3. She wins her debut match. She wins her first title within AEW. And then afterwards, Statlander shoves down Stokely. Says, I think she'd been posting photos with Willow all day on Instagram, leading her out. And then she slams her down on the ramp and attacks her again. And Stokely and Chris Statlander betray poor Willow Nightingale and leave together.
I was delighted to hear the atmosphere, not only because it validated what I said on the preview. This is going to feel like something quite special, and the crowd brought it. I think they've done a quietly really good job of building this after those initial missteps in the Mercedes character, so I was glad that sort of mattered. All the TV build mattered. The nicest thing, I'm going to say one criticism of this match, and I think it's valid and fair, and I'm not the only person who thought it. She needs to drop that new finish. It's not very good.
Yes.
It's not even worked over half the time. It's
not even worked against people you can believably think, oh, she can get them on her shoulders. It's not just the execution of the move. It's the fact that she keeps going for it as well. There was more than one moment in this match where it's like, I hate to be that wrestling fan because I think they're the all-time worst. A bit too small to be doing those moves against a much bigger opponent. It just stretched my suspension of disbelief personally. If you forget about that, my God, the nicest thing and the best thing I can say about this match is that there were certain moments because they just mastered the struggle and the viciousness and the hatred and we've each been thinking about this. This is like the first match changed the trajectory of our lives, and I'm going to bloody remember that and hold on to that grudge and that resentment and that hatred. And in every, like when they got the legs and just slammed, you'd feel it in your knees. For all the fire, explosions, thumbtacks and chair shots, the action in this match when they were working each other's legs and the way they did it and the body language behind it made me wince as much as anything in Anarchy in the Arena. And that's not a slight on Anarchy in the Arena because I loved it. I absolutely loved it, this match, in terms of what you can do with your bodies and your facial expressions and your selling, matched the level of violence I felt in my soul with literally any weapon and some of the most deranged weapons you can think of that were in that main event. There was so much of this match in terms of its like tenor, story building, some of those Mercedes Moné bumps
Oh my God.
that I was head over heels in love with. It's all going to be fine because this is what she does. This is what she does.
It was just nice to have that. This was my favourite match in the show, and it was nice to have that feeling when there was so much excessive weapons-based violence on a card that was being main evented by Anarchy.
It felt like it
Arena.
hurt so much more than the cage match.
So much
Like
so.
10 times more.
I was almost sort of grateful in a way to some of those quite like empty, hollow matches that didn't really give the fans much to cling on to, because this did over and over again with wrestling, with what Mercedes has offered over and over and again, with what Willow Nightingale continues to offer in this story that has absolutely been, I think, the making of her ultimately as this figure that could be a figurehead. Like, it had to be Mercedes Moné's night. It did. But But this story has done her no harm whatsoever, and and it's always with AEW if they follow up. But coming out of what will be the Chris Statlander thing and all of that, down the line there is another run for her where she is firmly established as this like top talismanic figure within the AEW women's division, and this match was all of that. It did have so much pressure riding on it. They weren't permitted to fail here.
No.
So that again, any time where there might have been, if there'd have been a miscommunication or if something had gone wrong that was out of their control, there would have been the sense of, all right, here we go, the Mercedes Moné run's been a disaster because some of her promos, rightfully, in my opinion, were being criticised, and the presentation of the character. But no, this validated all of the good stuff that we did get in the build. It was a complicated, it's less so than Deeb and Tony Storm, but the presentation of the Mercedes Moné character, I still don't quite yet know. Is she this naive heel that believes herself to be the world's biggest babyface? That was certainly her entrance presented her as this sort of person that was here to bring great change and revolution, all that stuff. But the real babyface is Willow Nightingale. So, is she just in her own head and is it head in the clouds, or is she actually going to be a babyface? I get we're still going to find that out, but it didn't hamper the match in any way. This was one of those cases where Cody Rhodes said it years ago, and I don't think necessarily he's been proven right, because him as a heart and sleeve babyface is what's taking him to the promised land. He was a guy that said no babyface and heels anymore, it's all different. This match was a good example of the point he was making, I think. You were most of all sort of trapped within the reality of the struggle between these two women, not about the characters they portray on TV or what you think about them personally. It's who's better? Who is better? What are your top attributes? What are mine?
Who can withstand the pain?
And who's better at this? Is my
Who wants it more?
Yeah, is my experience going to lead the day, or should I have taken you a bit more seriously? Was the injury an accident the first time, but was it an accident waiting to happen because you've got this strength advantage over me? It was that game of pro wrestling top trumps, and one of them's going to prevail. And it didn't. It turns out it did not need a clear heel baby face. It just needed these two to have this match, and I loved it for them as well. It was the one
Dragon
point
suplex bomb.
Oh, it was amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Again, Anarchy in the Arena is this totally different thing, but I still think I felt more God, I wish I was in the building for this one. As amazing as some of those visuals they created at main event, as a match where it was oh yeah, I was there for that, and it felt special, because it felt special watching on TV.
On to the next main event then. The world title on the line. Swerve Strickland.
We call them WWE superstars next.
They all merited main event status, these three matches. Christian Cage versus Swerve Strickland. Sorry, around my manners. Swerve Strickland with Prince Nana with a nice Warriors-themed entrance. Against Christian Cage, Kill Switch, Nick Wayne, and Nick Wayne's mom, who's got it going on, of course.
She does.
Did you see someone tagged us in something? Because they did the bit, I should mention, Nick Wayne tricked Prince Nana into being caught with the belt, basically, and he gets kicked out. And then subsequently, after a load of interference from Kill Switch and Nick Wayne's wine, got it going on, and Nick Wayne, they get caught and they get ejected. And someone sent us a video from in the crowd saying, "Eject me,
a mother."
Did
see that.
Thank you for that. So in the end, yes, it comes down to Cage and Swerve. Although there was a nice spot, I think, when everyone was still out there, where he pulled his turtleneck over his head. And I think Taz was giggling that he looked like Kenny from South Park or something like that. He's just getting and then the final bit, he finally got it back down, and Swerve just flew over the top rope and just completely took him out. Someone on the news this morning asked me and Hamflet what our favourite spot/moment from Double or Nothing was, obviously implying, is it Jack Perry on fire? Is it Darby Allin getting hit by a bus? Is it Darby Allin getting hung upside down from his bad ankle and super kicked in his face and breaking his nose? And I said, they're all great, obviously, and probably Jack Perry on fire is going to be the thing that lives longest in the memory. But,
oh my God.
The house call reversal to the Christian Cage spear was if I genuinely think it's one of those things, if we'd suggested, not the saying that I would come up with it, if we'd suggested it, all of us would be going, well, that's not going to happen. That's impossible.
My broad takeaway from that match is how much did Christian Cage put over the threat of that happening to him throughout. And the fact that I must avoid that. And that's Christian Cage 101.
Defensive wrestling. Untouchable, isn't it?
This is absolutely so great. I don't think it'll ever be remembered as one of the great world title matches or even one of the great AEW pay-per-view matches. But I don't know how he keeps doing this. He'll build a match how it's meant to be built. It should feel familiar. Mm-hmm. It should feel like, I've seen this a million times. And yet, because he's so great at it, in the context and the body of a match, he makes that one move feel like you cannot get hit with that. He puts over moves like Mick Foley put over wrestlers. Christian Cage, he's absolutely unbelievable at what he does.
Yeah, I like this, and I didn't love it. I think
I get it.
but I liked it a lot, and it was. I still can't work out if this was right ultimately for Swerve. All of this, I still don't know.
Probably not.
Probably not. I'd like the proof of the pudding's going to be eaten with what comes next, because you do have to. We say this all the time. First challenges, it's a tough thing to do. Anarchy in the Arena, you sense was going to happen because like Tony Khan had set this up as a tradition, and we all said I think that it was going to go on last, so you hadn't going to have another situation. Swerve might not headline Forbidden Door, so again this inadvertent profile keeps being built of a guy that is a secondary figure holding your world title. MJF joins Will Ospreay as a guy that has just put himself back in the conversation of somebody that has to be near the top of the card. Cedric's point about the 15 top guys to placate, Swerve is sort of trapped in that a little bit. This match was...
It's more unfortunate timing, I'd say.
And it's the Santa Khan as well.
Yeah. This was a lovely match.
That's what he does, though. It's did it with FTR. You win all those belts. Even like, the Acclaimed are getting the main present, but you can get... You want to go to Mexico? Check.
It was a lovely match.
Too nice for his own good as a booker. It's too feckless.
I don't think it was everything Swerve needed.
No, that's fair.
I think I've taken to your thing on the Swerve stomp as well. Like the sitting around.
That's my thing.
Is that yours? Sorry, I couldn't remember which one of you said that.
One of the great minds on this podcast. It's hard to distinguish sometimes.
Greatness, Ekis, greatness. It's like
Hangman Page is the only one that can do it.
Yeah, it's just like I was.
This is genius.
Hit him. This is.
Move.
Yeah,
he's taking ages to set this up. Yeah,
Hangman Page is the one.
I will also mention, because it tickled me, the bit where Swerve wins, it goes to celebrate, and nothing against the guy, but it's like Swerve Strickland and Floyd Mayweather is a cool visual. Slightly offset by the fact that the bloke from Impractical Jokers is there as well, going, yeah! Like, he's buzzing, obviously, it's lovely, but everyone's been dunking on the poor bloke today.
So you're having it go as well.
He's funny.
Oh, Q, like.
It's just such a cooler. Yay! I'm here as well. It's great, but that is such a cool image as well with Swerve. Main event time proper now. Anarchy in the arena.
Dinosaur my God.
Oh my God.
It's great.
Where to start with this? I suppose musically to begin with. So we had Darby Allin that got cut off by Nick Jackson.
Yeah, I'll do it. They work me, bro. So the Elite come out, and then FTR and Danielson cut them off at the pass, and then the brawl starts, and then Darby's music hits, and you go, all right, okay, well, it's not as iconic as the first two moments, but, it's fine. Darby's the big sort of, like, hero of the piece, I believe it. Then Matthew or Nicholas Jackson says, here's something, right? He goes, turn that off. We're going to hear our new entrance music for a split second until you heard the succession. Do you know where I'm going with this?
I think so.
For a split second, I thought they were going to debut, and Khan would license it, Mbop by Hanson.
Oh, wow.
Which they used in PWG. I thought, so it said new entrance music.
So great.
And I thought, are they going to do Mbop? Because the idea of them doing Mbop and the juxtaposition
of violence.
The violence
on fire.
would have been unbelievable, and maybe they could do it again next year.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
I thought, because the new entrance, Mbop, with this, that song, with this action, I would have been here for it.
I wouldn't have even considered Mbop.
But then what happened instead was they did the Succession theme. I was like, this is so bad it's working, because I know what's happening. So that's not going to be the song. What is it? And then Danielson went, turn that shit off. We're going to hear the best entrance theme in history. Then they do a final countdown. They brawl. Dax has the tequila, which we called. Mm-hmm. And then Darby Allin times his balcony dive, which is about the 15th most insane thing in this match, to the drop, to the crescendo. It's the final fucking us. Jacking it. I was jacking it there and then.
And then Matt Jackson says, turn this off, it costs us.
The way it's costing us like $200,000 every time we do it. And then he goes, we got a budget to worry about. And then Tony Schiavone, did you hear him go, when did that happen? I was just a delirium, a state of pro wrestling delirium.
I'm going to inevitably miss one of the preposterous spots in here, but feel free to jump in whenever I mention them. As you mentioned, the big coffin drop timed to.
I was such a little dork, fist pumping away in my living room when he did that. Like, yeah, wrestling.
There's Darby Allin drowning Jack Perry in an ice bucket.
That was genius, by the way.
Crucial, that.
Utter bit of genius.
Yep.
This is the peak AEW genius detail. So they put him in the ice bucket, so you then think, oh, he's soaking wet, and he don't get dry from a plunge like that. So when he comes out in the flame retardant gel, it doesn't look like, oh, you're in flame retardant gel.
Yeah.
What's wrong with Cody Rhodes' back?
Yeah.
That's what they're avoiding.
What's all that on his back? It's Taz who said that.
What the hell's up with Cody's back, X? Well, Jim.
Well, Jim,
the
he's got a
finish is on a
pre-planned
piece of paper in front of you. It's going to happen in 10 minutes. So probably that.
There was also a bit where, when what a weird sentence to say, before Darby Allin got hit by a bus driven by Jack Perry.
Even that was genius. Obviously, it's because he got hit by a bus in real life. They've established that the Young Bucks drive a Tesla, which in itself is such a great bit, and that Okada has a Ferrari. This vehicle stuff could not have been more well thought out.
A blacked out scapegoat.
Obviously, people drive
the
places.
scapegoat bus is like Jack Perry's on Lex Express that they bought him. It's perfect.
Perfect.
Also, that great Squidward looking out the
Vehicle
window.
stuff.
Yeah.
Squidward looking out the window thing at SpongeBob. It's being like Cash Wheeler watching them doing all their favourite spots and not getting to use a gun, someone said. But there was a bit where I thought there was going to be, because I was like, I think we'd already talked about in the build, someone, might have been Tony, might have been just a source in AW saying they're going to use or they've been allowed to potentially use the flamethrower. When they're brawling outside, probably just after the ice bucket, and there's the big pile of stuff, basically, that gets hit by the bus, and I think Jack Perry got a pipe out from under there. I was like, that's weirdly built in a bonfire shape. I was like, they're going to light that entire thing on fire. So when they cut to that, and it was just like, I was like, what the bloody hell's going on here?
How fast was this bus?
It was a fast-ass bus.
A fast-ass bus.
Darby Allin just won't die, basically. They trapped him inside the stage elevator that the Bucks use.
Someone had a great tweet on this. Someone said, if Sting raises up on that, I'm doing a full 450 out my window on God. It's the idea of getting so hyped up by Sting, and I can get it. So just a 450 splash out the window.
There was a TK driver onto Allin, onto the big stack of poker chips. What was the spot I know you wanted to mention with, was it the FTR?
So the Young Bucks do a shatter machine.
That was it, yes.
FTR do one deeper into the match where one of the Bucks gets Irish whipped into the ropes. In a moment of pure, oh Christ, an opportunity has presented itself. Dax lifts him up, and I'm thinking, where the hell's Cash? All right, okay, he's coming at warp speed with millimeter precise timing to hit the shatter machine. And it was just a wonderful bit of professional wrestling within this insane match that'll never be remembered.
So Jack Perry has, at this point, we thought, killed Darby Allin, hitting him with a bus, as I mentioned. And he's walking through the back, like, oh, here comes Jack. 'Cause obviously, they did like a 4-camera split at one point. And again,
I'm glad they didn't maintain that throughout the match.
because you was like,
You want the idea that this thing lives and breathes, and if you miss something, tough titties, they hate each other enough to do stuff that no one is watching.
And Jack Perry's walking through the back, and he stops and doubles back and just grabs Tony Khan, and he's dragging him out. And I'm thinking, Tony's going to take another bump. We're getting another beam. And we sort of did, him rolling down the ramp. Was class. I saw someone say he's the Michael Scott of professional wrestling, which is quite a good comparison.
You ever seen The Princess Bride?
Yeah, the Andre the Giant one.
Yeah. When, as the Dread Pirate Roberts, what's called Stable Boy, goes down the cliff. As you wish, this is great.
So Jack Perry drags him out onto the stage, but before he can do anything, here comes Darby Allin with his flamethrower, who proceeds to set Jack Perry on fire.
Oh my God.
He's flailing around all over
I
the
look the
place.
cell.
It's great, man. Arms everywhere. Loved it.
And I think the Bucks and various other presumably security and safety people are there with fire extinguishers to put it out. but he was on fire for a good, it felt like 30 seconds minimum. There's also the new Young Bucks shoes complete with thumbtacks, shoe stuff. The exploding chair shot from Matt to Dax.
What kind of deranged genius would think to do a spot like that?
Did you pitch that in the preview?
No, I did last year and they did
Oh,
it
the
again.
exploding shoe, yeah.
Okada getting
Exploding stuff every year, and this is the right way to use it. I think.
I love it so much, man. An explosion.
It fits why you're just like on this insane high. It's like, yeah, of course I want that.
Yeah.
You could press firework that just goes for the back of stage. Wow! Why do I use it as a weapon?
A Rainmaker using a thumbtacked sleeve to Cash Wheeler.
I would describe Okada doing things gingerly in this match. I was on such a
Chair
buzz.
shot.
Where if you were to like just analyse his individual performance, probably not great.
No.
But I didn't mind.
No. Very happy with his Rainmaker drive.
Yeah, I love that. Had a great time.
Sign.
Had a great time just being careful with his friends.
And then Darby Allin gets beaten down in the middle of the ring. They lower a hook and they tie around his bad ankle, of
I
course.
thought we were going to take him to the rafters. It was only when I realised, oh, that's what you're doing. Like a relief. Like he's only getting thumbtacks in his broken nose.
He eventually gets raised up after this. The Team AEW try and make the save on several occasions. There's a bit as well where he's just swinging there, and I think Danielson's just like Busaiku knee someone, and the crowd are like, please just save Darby, and he tries, but he gets cut off. And then, like you say, Darby Allin gets super kicked in his broken nose with thumbtack special shoes. And eventually, Danielson reaches again up for Darby Allin, and Jack Perry's back. He's been successfully put out and hits a running knee to Bryan Danielson. 1, 2, 3. The Elite win Anarchy in the arena. Wild, as I said.
I want to say one slightly bad thing about this. One, before I just want to talk about it for about 3 or 4 minutes, uninterrupted, because I just loved it. The closing sequence of this match was like, I get it. Like, you don't have to do the overkill heat. Baby faces are fighting valiantly. Just a little bit not dramatically effective. I don't want to say insulting, that's too much. But, like, I get it. I'm meant to think they're hard. Just put an end to it because it's getting a little bit like Darby shouldn't have been up there too long. And I just don't need to fight for that long. It's not as if I respect them any less, you know what I mean? It's that wrestling is a little bit insulting a little bit in terms of, oh, don't worry about the baby faces, guys. Do not worry about those baby faces. You know what I mean? I'm 38 years old. I don't need that in my life. Right. Not that it matters that I have this thought at times, or very recently have had this thought, because nothing will get done about it. Recently, and I think this is the first time I've expressed this on this podcast, it's the first time in the past maybe 2 or 3 weeks where I've truly felt it. If Tony Khan didn't book this promotion for a year, I don't think I'd be bothered. I would have him as a consultant for a year. I don't know who, that's the thing, there's no one else. He needs some experience too. 4 years in, it was run as a promoter. He booked the largest paid attendance in the world ever. I think he's got the most experienced man for the job right there, and his name's Tony Khan. I wouldn't mind him as a consultant to someone who can plot things out.
Consultant.
A consultant to someone who can plot things out and be more ruthless and say, like, a consultant to Bill Watts or a Bill Watts type of, no, you're not getting used, or no, you're not doing that nonsense. That is placating your masturbatory ego. No. Because the flair that only Tony Khan can exhibit is just unparalleled, and it was this match. This match, my least favorite core wrestling memory ever, and every time I see it come up on X, I shudder, is a match between a guy who moves exactly the same versus another guy who moves exactly the same, who's green, in that 2008 to 2011 WWE mid-card with the WWE HD logo on the top right of the screen. I shudder at how bland it is. I shudder at how nothing it is. I shudder at how boring and meaningless it is. Anarchy in the Arena 3 was the opposite of that match. They have, right, you got wrestlers whose minds they appreciate, be creative. Right, okay. What ideas have you got for this match? Yes. Do them all. Do them all. This is AEW's core philosophy and mentality writ large in this masterpiece of a match. This is the feeling in a match. This is what I want out of AEW in a match. Like the final countdown. Don't be cheap. Don't hire Death Rebel. Do this and do that on top of it with a balcony dive.
TikTok,
Thank you very
it's
much.
the final countdown.
You're gonna create my expectations for a flamethrower, or I'll set some bastard on fire. Right, you've done it. Some of the actual wrestling and the high spots, the poker chip and the shatter machine were wonderful, but it was just the ideas, the energy, the sense that there'll be no other promotion like this ever. No other promotion have the balls to do this, the creativity to think it, the balls to do it, the level of performance to pull it off. It should have been a joke. Matthew Jackson to camera doing arts costing us $200,000, and to a degree it was played for laughs the first 5 minutes of this match. The tonal range seamlessly shifting through modes of comedy and violence and just creativity. This is the melting pot in one match. A bit flabby at times. Not everything looked wonderful, but I don't care. This is what you get. I loved it so much. I had the blast of all blasts.
Yeah, it's a reason to keep AEW doing what it does if week on week on week we're critical of X, Y, and Z, because again,
This is proof of concept.
what else has Anarchy in the Arena got? It's got excess, and we're critical of that all the time. And yet, what is this match without excess? As you say, yes, is what they're told. Can we do that? Yes. Is there a ceiling? No. Like if there wasn't that attitude, you wouldn't get the stuff that you also don't like about AEW. Like the fact that there is an Anarchy in the Arena every year, when it's this whole thing in wrestling of it's convenient that the stipulation has come around that we have it at the same time every year. Like that is something that people have hated about pro wrestling, and yet this match occurs, and you're like, we'll never take this away. Never ever take this away. Once a year, like, you need this. I have no memories almost of Stadium Stampede from All In, and I was in the stadium where they were stampeding, and yet there is something different about Anarchy in the Arena's energy to just about anything else in pro wrestling ever. And ultimately, if you don't like 51 weeks of AEW television for what you perceive to be its flaws, you will be reminded of what those flaws also generate.
This is the best of Tony Khan, isn't it?
Yeah, of 20 minutes or however long it goes. Hey, again, and what was the runtime on this out of interest?
29:55.
29, like
30 minutes, basically.
I'd
Flew
had-
by.
Yeah, like you wouldn't have had this as longer than 3/4 of the mid-card matches that were boring your senses.
Yeah.
So
Trying to work out how long's Europe's final countdown is if they'd have played it the entire match. Okay, radio edit 4:03. That's pretty pricey if they'd have gone for the full 30 minutes.
So I was eating literally every dish at the buffet and just perfectly full. Maybe a little bit more.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit more than I could take with the last 2 minutes. But this is
Unforgettable. No?
unforgettable, iconic, completely creative, passionate, detailed, committed. This was everything I love about AEW in one utterly deranged spectacle. See you next year. Please do it again.
Well, let us know your thoughts on Anarchy in the Arena and, of course, the entirety of Double or Nothing, either in the comments section below or on X at WhatCulture WWE. Watch, they can follow all three of us. You can follow Michael Hamflett at
Michael Hamflett.
You can follow Michael Sidgwick at
M. Sidgwick.
You can follow me at Adam Wilborn. Follow our brilliant producer at It's Adam Nicholas. And make sure you subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling, wherever you get your podcast from, for daily wrestling podcasts. And yes, we will be back very soon with a King and Queen of the Ring review as well. But for now, and of course, we'll be back later on this week to preview AEW Dynamite, I should say. But for now, this has been the Double or Nothing review. My thanks to Hamflett and Sidgwick. Thank you for joining us. And we will see you soon.